Speaking of Virginia, here's another figure from Virginia. A lot of people from Virginia. This guy's Edmund Randolph, distinguished gentleman. He is going to advocate for a few key ideas. First, that the U.S. government should be split into 3 co-equal branches. Oh, that's what we have today. Legislative, judicial, executive. And he is a promoter of something called the Virginia Plan. This plan favors big states, not big in territory, but big in population. And he wants representation in Congress to be based off of population. This is going to be a big bone of contention and debate. It's going to lead to a real important compromise later on. The opposite to him would be New Jersey's own William Paterson. Look at him. Nice haircut. William Paterson is indicative of smaller states. And he is a voice for protecting states like Connecticut, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Delaware that don't have large populations. And he fears what is called the tyranny of the majority, that the big states will force their will down to smaller states, and why should the smaller states join the Union then? He instead is going to promote what's known as the New Jersey Plan. Whoop, whoop, Jersey. That each state should be represented equally in Congress. If we're making United States, it should be united equal states. Each state should have an equal voice. This should be a guy that you recognize. That's George Washington. Hip, hip, hooray. In 1787, like now, George Washington is one of the most popular and respected figures in the country because he's the general who beat the British. He's the one that accepted the surrender at Yorktown. He is the most venerated of venerated people. Now, Washington wanted to, after giving his commission of the army, giving control of his army over to the Congress, he then wanted to retire to Mount Vernon, live a relaxed life on his plantation with Martha. But he keeps getting pulled and called into service for his country. One of the reasons why he's asked to come to the convention and to serve as the president of the convention is because he is the only person that people on all sides, Federalists, Anti-Federalists, big states, small states, we're going to talk about slave states and free states. He's the only one that people that have all these disputes that kind of, well, they all look up to him. So he is the best person to kind of be the referee of the proceedings. During the actual convention, Washington tries to stay out of the debate because he fears that him speaking will have too much influence because he's so popular. He wants to let the proceedings move on their own. But he just wants to keep them fair. He kind of acts like a ref throughout it. And the last one we got, if we're talking about the Constitution, we got to talk about my BF, and that's Benjamin Franklin from Pennsylvania. We started with the youngest delegate with James Madison. We're ending with the oldest, and that is Benjamin Franklin. He was 81, which in 1787 might as well be 120. It's a very old age for 1787. Franklin staked his life's work on the American Revolution, and he now fears that the entire nation is about to collapse. There's a story of Franklin that they tell at Independence Hall. Washington's seat had a giant sun. It was a half of a sun face. And he kept thinking in his mind, is that sun a setting sun? Is our country about to, depart this world? Is the sun setting on the United States early? Or is it a rising sun? Are we about to rise up and be the nation we can be? And he's, at the end of the convention with the Constitution in place, he says, I'm happy to report that it's a rising sun. Franklin will be a strong voice for a democratic system of government. And he wants a republic where the people elect representatives and advocates for the people to have a say in the people that make the decisions. And that if they don't like what the people making decisions are doing, then the people have a right to fire them. A republic, where they elect representatives for the public, which we have. He's also going to be an important force for compromise on both sides. Like Washington, he is immensely respected and is able to kind of get people to come together and find a middle ground on debate. Another guy that I don't have a picture of, Roger Sherman, will play a key role in helping compromise along as well. Speaking of compromise, what is that? A compromise and agreement where both sides give up something in order to gain something. To keep things moving forward, you have to give a little to get a little. And we're going to see that politics in many ways is the art of the compromise. In order to get a bill passed today, Democrats and Republicans might have to give up something in order to gain something. And since politics is the art of compromise was definitely underway during the Constitutional Convention. We're going to see that the delegates of the convention are going to have to compromise again to have a meeting in the middle ground to keep the proceedings moving forward and to come with a constitution that all of them would be willing to sign their name onto. Some of these compromises are well-renowned, and some of the compromises are a bit controversial, even to this day. We'll talk about that. So, your question for the end of this lesson is, A, at the bottom of the video and comments, define compromise in your own words. And I want you to think of a compromise that you've made in your life. Maybe you and a sibling have to share a computer. So you work out a schedule where they get to use it at some point, and you get to work it as another point. Maybe you wanted a later curfew, and you offer to do a chore in exchange. You give up doing the chore, you get the later curfew. Your parents give up having you home a little bit later, but get something done around the house. Compromise. So I want you to think of one compromise that you've made in your life. If you can't think of one, then develop a real life, hypothetical real life compromise. What's something that in today's world would be a compromise that could happen? That wraps up this lesson. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great one.